Rev up your engines! All right, Chevy confirms an all-electric Silverado is in the way. No surprise, but of course, you know, it's in the future. They don't know exactly when they're going to build it. Take the Hummer. I see it advertised on TV now. They're not going to be out for quite some time. They've already sold all their fancy ones that are $100-something thousand, the first version. Their regular version, the cheaper one, the $79,000 Hummer, they say that that's not going to be actually out until the spring of 2024. You know, that's more than 3 years from now. A lot of things can change in 3 years. So, you know, they're going to make an EV Silverado. They have to, because Ford's going to make an EV F-150. You know, they got to compete against each other. And GM is big into electrification now. They're also big into fuel cells, so who knows? Maybe it'll be a fuel cell vehicle. Nobody knows. That's the thing. This stuff is all tossed up in the air. All these companies are throwing their hat in the ring. Who knows which ones are going to fail? But you know that eventually they were going to make a Silverado electric vehicle too. I mean, it only makes sense because they can pull a lot. They have a lot of torque. They're big vehicles. You got a lot of room to put batteries in. There's no problem with space to put batteries into things. At some point in the future, you'll be able to get an electric Silverado. They're not giving any actual dates or anything yet, and all that much configurations about it, but you knew they were going to come out and make an electric Silverado. They're all throwing their hat into the ring, but like I say, if I were you, I'd wait a while. See which ones actually are built right. See which ones hold up. See which ones are actually even built because they aren't being built yet. Clement Wang says, Scotty, I got a 99 Honda CR-V, close to 300,000 kilometers. It's getting louder. Now, I've never changed the transmission fluid since I got it. What should I do? All right, I would change the transmission fluid. It's a Honda. There's no filter. There's actually a filter inside, but you'd have to split the whole transmission. It'd cost you thousands of dollars pulling it out, taking it apart. So nobody ever does that except when they rebuild them. And it just has a simple drain plug. You drain out, put new fluid. Put in a Honda fluid, but do it now and you got a chance of making it last as long as possible. I changed many of the older Hondas with fluid that was dirty and it helped them all out. They're not like American cars where there's clutch parts that shed and then when you change the old stuff, they don't even move anymore. Hondas are different and I would change it because if you don't, eventually that dirty fluid is going to cause damage like anything else. Fluid gets dirty, it's going to start wearing things out. Even if something as dumb as the seals start to leak, you got to pull the transmission off to do the front main seal of the transmission. So it's not a cheap job. Aerojet7 says, I got a 1984 Toyota Celica GTS manual transmission. I'm moving to another state and I'm planning on towing the Celica behind. Can I tow it with all four wheels on the ground? All right, yes you can. It's a manual transmission. The only thing that lubricates the transmission is just oil splashing around. Put it in neutral, you can tow it, you're not going to have any problems. You don't really have any problems with something like that. If it was an automatic, no, you can't. With a standard, that's why if people are going to buy an RV or have a truck and pull a little car behind them, make sure you get a standard transmission. Because if you get an automatic, you're going to have to put it on a dolly or have it towed up all in the air. Or let's say if you got a rear wheel drive one, you'd have to tow it backwards with the front wheels and it's kind of a cow towing them. Or if it's front wheel drive, you'd have to put the front wheels on a dolly and then the rear wheels are going. And that's not that much fun driving those things around like that. You're actually better towing a vehicle on a trailer if you got to do something like that, towing it behind you. It's a standard transmission. But yeah, you can do it. It won't hurt anything. Tesla is being frustrated with the outdated approval process for their Gigafactory in Berlin. What a surprise. Tesla's surprised that the Germans have rules you have to go by. He wants all kinds of special stuff for himself because he says he's a green factory and, oh, they need to kiss his little hiney. Well, I guess the Germans aren't kissing his hiney. They've had problems. They had to shut down some of the construction for a while because they weren't going by the Germans' rules. You go to Germany and you don't listen to rules. Let me tell you, I'm like 90-something% German. Germans are into rules. If you're not into rules, don't deal with the Germans. Don't build stuff there. Tesla sent a letter to the Germans that said they're discouraging clean energy. Hey, you know, it's not that clean when they're building those things. Come on now. Clean energy. Tesla. Elon Musk, same guy who's sending rockets into outer space that run on kerosene. Pollute like mad, right? I mean, we've got hypocrisy in action here. Tesla says, we have learned firsthand that obstacles in Germany's approval processes are slowing down the necessary industrial transformation. Yeah, well, that's Germans and rules. Even at World War II, they had rules for everything. I mean, the Germans are that way. They are rule-oriented people. They have to have order. They have to have structure. I know that. I've got German relatives all over the place. They're insane about that stuff. They get carried away with it. But if you're going to do business in Germany, don't you kind of expect that? The Germans hit back with them And they said, legally, we cannot allow to differentiate between seemingly climate-friendly projects and those that may be polluting. Now, they're not starting production supposedly until July, but Tesla's obviously getting nervous. I guess the Germans are just letting their process go along. I'm betting on the Germans in this one. Tesla's going to have to placate them a little bit, you know? He's got factories in China, and I'm sure he placated the Chinese of the factories in China. They don't just let you come in willy-nilly. Well, I guess they figured they're communists, but the Germans are a democratic republic. Hey, they're still Germans. I know what Germans are like. I'm 90% German, so if you do not like order, go somewhere else. Well, Volkswagen just completed a 6,700-mile cross trip from New York to California with a VW ID.4, 2021 electric car that they have, to prove that they can go long distances. And they went from New York, Philly, Washington, cut over, went through Detroit, came down through the south, Nashville, Jacksonville, then cut over the coast, New Orleans, and went down near the Mexican border and ended up in San Francisco. A rather circuitous route, but they wanted to prove that there's enough charging stations to do it. Now, realize this is a carefully planned route. This isn't just jump in your car and take the closest route. It had 201 horsepower in the rear wheel and only had one setup for power, and it could go about 250 miles on a full range. So as long as you plan within 200 miles or so, you know, it's doable. But of course, you gotta wait to charge them up, takes time and stuff. Now, if you take a conventional route with a gasoline-powered car, and you drive 8 hours a day, it's going to take you about 5 days to go from New York to California. With this electric trip, it took 14 to 16 days. They took kind of a circuitous route and went around. But realize you're going to spend a lot of time recharging the batteries. This isn't jump and drive. You got to plug them in. It's going to take hours to recharge them. It's a publicity stunt for Volkswagen, obviously. They've proven they can do it. Now, Electrify America has a lot of these charging stations. It's owned by Volkswagen. And they say that by December 2021, they're going to install 800 charging stations and 3,500 chargers in them. That's by December 2021. But still, you're talking about what? 3,500 chargers. If millions of people own these cars, that's not a plausible thing. Like old Scotty said, it's going to be a long time before electric cars become a normal thing that people are going to be driving around this country. That's just common sense. That's not going to happen for quite some time. This just proves that it can be done with certain routes if you've got the time and energy. But if it does mass produce, they're going to have to make a heck of a lot more charging stations and ones that work a lot faster than the ones that they have today. Who knows? You know, like I say, maybe it's going to be hydrogen fuel cell cars. You can refuel those things in 3 to 5 minutes. So to me, that makes a lot more sense in the long run. And you don't have to buy all those expensive batteries with lithium and whatever, cobalt, all the rare elements. You don't need that stuff. With a hydrogen fuel cell car, you need the hydrogen, which of course is another infrastructure that would have to be created. If you ask me, it's going to be a long time in the future before the average American's driving this stuff around. Now here's something you might not have thought about, but Michelin, the tire company, is putting a big bet on hydrogen. They say that they want to be one of the biggest creators of green hydrogen. No surprise, Michelin, a French company, while Stellantis bought Fiat Chrysler. They're getting into electric cars, talking about building hydrogen fuel cell cars. So why doesn't the company get involved in making hydrogen in Europe? Because believe me, it's going to hit in Europe long before it hits in the United States. The Germans already have enough hydrogen fuel stations in Germany so that 18-wheel trucks can travel all around Germany and deliver things. So they'll have pure electric trucks running on hydrogen fuel cells, and they can refuel them throughout the entire country of Germany. Now, Germany isn't a particularly large country, but still, that shows it's going to happen in Europe long before it happens in the United States. They're also getting into fuel cell production, all kinds of stuff to make money. Michelin has a venture called Symbio with a car parts maker, Faurecia SA, and they're developing the biggest hydrogen systems factory in Europe. And no surprise, they're going to be making hydrogen fuel cells for Stellantis. Yes, you know, Peugeot bought Fiat Chrysler, it's called Stellantis, and that's in France too, so no surprise here. Schaffman says, I got an 03 Honda CR-V with the code PO420, and I got these oxygen sensor spacers. I'm going to put them on. It came with 2 spacers. Some guy said you only need to put it on the back one on the cat, not the front one. What do you think? From my experience with those Hondas, often you can do it just on the back one, so it won't trip the code. Now, here's the thing. I just did one the other day. If you do put the spacer on, a lot of times it won't trip the code, but it won't allow it to complete itself. valve. So you'll have 1 mil not ready. Now, if you know the law, the federal law is go get your car inspected with OBD2. You can have 1 mil not ready and it'll still pass. So don't be surprised that if you put that spacer on the back one, you'll still have mil not ready after you reset the computer. But if you only have 1 mil not ready after you drive it a couple hundred miles, it'll pass the inspection. Because a lot of times it won't allow it to pass with no mils. It won't get rid of that last mil because it kind of knows something's funky, but it's not bad enough to say the code is out, but it's not good enough to say that it cleared that mil. So you'll still have 1 mil, but with the 1 mil, you can still get your car passed. And I did one a couple weeks ago, that was the same thing, and it got its inspection because it had 1 mil not ready, but it didn't trip the code. So he's able to get it inspected. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.